train our men and carry on their work with the installations that they are retaining. And since it will save hundreds of millions of dollars, I would be in favor of the cutbacks.
Do you think we can carry on the same level?
Well, the Defense Department officials say we can, and I would accept their statement for that.
What about
Well, I put it in. If you want to go find out, we can do that through the phone out there.
No.
I have said from the first that I believe wholeheartedly in the concept of accessible politics. I have kept my campaign open, and my support has come from widely diverse groups, many of whom in the past have been left out of decision-making. I have not
The most important matters are, first, the revision of the city charter.
A very adequate job the first time we wrote a sign ordinance, but from political pressures it did not stand. So we felt that it would be the council felt, they're the ones that gave the money for it.
The proposed sign ordinance in Dallas had a clause regarding removal of private property that is common to the Denver ordinance that was ruled by the courts to be unconstitutional. It seems to me that,
as I asked Mr. Smothers before, can be served by a Wallace man elected?
No, I do not.
Why?
Because I have not seen the American Party concerned about the rights and responsibility, or having a responsibility for serving the total community in the past. And
give me a black boy and I take him to KRLD or KDFW and he'll get the first chance at it. It's popular to be black. But you see, in 5 years, this is going to change. Even liberal white folks are not going to sit by the side, by the way, while their little daughter, little son get a second break. The parents are going to say, listen, I know we had slavery.
Telling how long a lot of things have transpired in the last couple of years, and I need to take a look at some of the programs and activities which are currently underway.
Did you bring any particular plans with you?
No, the plans are quite well formulated. 5-year plan to look inside the programs that currently exist, to experts around in this area. You just treat these, where are you going? The state police?
If you wanted to know about vegetarian cooking and the protein foods to call,
and good for you too. And you can't get cancer or anything, any disease from it. Would you like to know that?
Yeah, I talked to him, but
What did he have to say?
well, he just said he was coming out.
No, I don't think that's part of that concept, and I don't agree with it. The way you phrased it, a lot of the top people would come in from the outside. It's not so.
A blue ribbon crowd of city and county officials and business and civic leaders turned out in chill winds and gray skies to see ground broken and to view a model of a unique garden in the midst of buildings and stores. There'll be a chapel, trees, fountains, and grass in about 2 years. Little Margaret Robleto and Mrs. Phyllis Duncan were picked to symbolically turn the earth, representing the average citizens who will use the park the most. It's located at Pacific and Irvay. Mayor Wes Wise called the project another Dallas first.
Like Dallas, this place is a place of the future, a place of new ideas, from the truck terminal 2 levels below us here and the pedestrian way 1 level below to the beautiful garden and chapel which will soon rise above the ground.
Even before all the people had left the site after the ceremony, a bulldozer began work breaking up concrete and moving ground in preparation for actual construction to get underway here immediately. Construction of a development which President of the Thanksgiving Foundation, Peter Stewart, says will not only provide a quiet place and peaceful place for people to come in the midst of all the downtown activity, but also a place that can truly express our thanksgiving to God for all He's done for us. This is Rosser McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move at Thanksgiving Square.
The dishes the ladies are preparing, from things that can be bought at the grocery store, the patties, the oatmeal patties, the lentil loaf, there's a rice casserole. I would say it'll compare about half to what meat would cost you in the grocery store today.
It depends on the value that you put on giving people information at this point in time. Since we're in the middle of a communications revolution, and since war is really a struggle carried on by violent means, and absent war, you have a struggle for ideas. I would think, looked on in that context, it's very important to the American people, and certainly in my opinion it's important for us to promulgate our ideas throughout the world. I think it's an expenditure that we can look on in some small way as an insurance policy. If you ever have an opportunity to go into the government in some sort of a thing that seems natural to you, I would urge you to see.
Go on, Guy.
No.
Go on, Kenny. This is it. That's it. Steady now.
They'll give you enough B-roll to cover it.
Now, June.
Yeah, it really has.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I have residents who are on a lower socioeconomic scale. By residents who normally
You've heard the old expression, it's too wet to plow. Well, take my word for it, it is. The farmers need to be out in these muddy fields planting, and they can't. In the north central Texas area, the two main crops are grain sorghums and cotton. We're 6 weeks behind the time for planting grain sorghums, and right now is the time to be planting cotton. The temperature of the soil is about 15 degrees below what it should be for the proper time for planting cotton. It's really not a problem of growing time because the crops can grow, but it is critical as far as timing on insects. That, according to Benny Simpson, who is a farm management expert with the Texas Agricultural Experiment Station.
We have a little insect called the green sorghum midge.
And these areas that we planted on the hillside, that's going to be a month to 6 weeks early, they'll actually become a midge hatchery, and they can just wipe out all of this green sorghum we plant in the bottoms.
Well, the insects then will grow on the plants after they have come up, and then I guess they will go on and affect the smaller plants a lot more than they do those that are already grown.
That's right. If we can get our grain sorghum in within a 10-day period in a block and get it in early enough, generally we never have this problem.
Simpson points out that even if it stops raining right now, which obviously it's not, it's going to be 10 days to 2 weeks before this water is going to dry up enough to allow the farmers to get out here and work the fields. Most of us, this rain has been an inconvenience, but to the farmers it's their livelihood. We're really only a few inches above normal rainfall for this time of year, but it's been spread out over the winter and into the spring so that the fields have remained constantly wet and unable to be worked. But last year at this time we were crying that we weren't getting enough rain, and it still looked like we had a potential loss of crops. If it's not one thing, I guess it's another. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Bob, you played in the United Kingdom, you played in South Africa, you played in Australia, and now you're playing here in Dallas for the Tornado. What's the difference between soccer in the United States and soccer, say, in Australia or South Africa?
Well, I think here it's if it gets off the ground and the way it looks like it's getting off the ground, it will be bigger. The game will be, they have more technique in the game here due to the surface, I think, because the surface is good. And it's more or less the same all the year round. Within some of the countries, the surface can vary quite a lot, you know. Especially if this is typical of some of the stadiums. This is just fantastic.
What do you think of the Tornado chances coming season?
I've got to say they're good. I've got to say they're good. I don't know what the standard is here. I haven't seen it, but going by the team spirit here, and that counts for a lot. I think we have a good chance. I hope so, anyway.
General Dynamics has been considered the economic lifeblood in Fort Worth for years. Talk of its closing is not new. There's been speculation to that effect before, and there is again now. But this time it has more clout. The indefiniteness of this future of this plant was uttered by none other than Deputy Secretary of Defense William Clements. Executives with General Dynamics make no comment. The fact of the matter is, General Dynamics is virtually a tenant in an Air Force plant. A plant named Plant Number 4, and the private corporation builds airplanes here for the government in its plant, and should the planes be discontinued, the plant will be closed. People who have worked here for a long time and have seen planes come and go give me this analysis. We stay in business by coming up with a better one when the old one plays out, and so far we always have. The F-111 is General Dynamics' current bread and butter, and it has a follow-through contract through the year 1974. But the government has not committed a contract for 1975, and if General Dynamics doesn't come up with another star attraction, then the maybe could be removed from Mr. Clements' comment about the future of this plant. John Tackett, General Dynamics, Fort Worth.
Well, all cities, of course, grow inside outward. Over the last 10 years, our black enrollment has been increasing at about 1% per year. Our Anglo enrollment has been decreasing at about 1% per year. 2 years ago, the court order simply expedited the rate at which this transition was taking place.
Well, I think it's interesting. The federal, the current administration is apparently trying to give back some of the responsibilities to the city, certainly with the revenue sharing, the various social programs. And we in the cities have been screaming for years that we want more local control, more local say-so over our own destiny, and I think this is a part of our responsibility to pass this ordinance and take more responsibility locally.
In Dallas, there's been a fair housing ordinance since November of 1971, and Jim Mitchell has some statistics on that.
No, not really, because, see, this is where they went in the primary. They went just about the same. We picked up a few votes, but not very many. It went about the same as it did in the primary. The only thing about the black box is they voted a bigger percentage this time than did the conservative boxes in the southwest side. Well, no, I don't know that it helped or hurt, because I feel like the trend of an election usually holds, whether there's of course you got to have some to get a trend, but after the trend starts, you can usually depend on that trend carrying on through. And I think that it would have carried on through if it had been 40,000 votes or if it had been 10,000 votes. At least this has been my observation.
Well, we would of course hope that there would be no opposition, but in an instance of this kind, we would anticipate those people that don't understand the ordinance and some of the things that we hope to accomplish by passing such an ordinance would be in opposition to it.
We have a federal fair housing law and have had since 1968. Why do we need a local law?
If you're old enough, you may remember shortages in such things as gasoline, cigarettes, and even food. In the 1940s, the Office of Price Administration, the OPA, was created, and general ration cards were issued to heads of families. The 40s also brought the black market, which sprang up to supply items you couldn't get with ration cards. Most rationing ended just after World War II, but the last item on the ration books, sugar, was still in short supply until 1947, when sugar rationing ended. In Great Britain, rationing got worse instead of better after the war, and the British didn't see the end of rationing until 1954. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move, 25 years ago.
Voters in Fort Worth have a choice between a political newcomer and a city council veteran. They can choose between Mrs. Ann Merrick, a 37-year-old housewife, and Mayor Pro Tem Ted Peters, who's trying for a third term on the city council. 2 weeks ago, voters gave Mrs. Merrick 41% of the vote, compared with 46% for Peters. But that close margin apparently has not generated much of a voter response in Fort Worth. Channel 8's John Tackett got an idea of the turnout when he talked with Mrs. Janet Gallagher, a clerk in Precinct 118.
Miss Gallagher, there went one voter. Now it's probably going to be a half an hour before another one comes. If things go like they have this morning, what are you going to do in your spare time?
Well, I guess I'll vote myself.
Okay.
Here in Dallas, the voter turnout today varies depending on the precinct, but the turnout generally appears to be light, as expected. This is Precinct 306 at North Dallas High School, and in the first 9 hours, only 26 people had voted here, so the election judges whiled away the day watching television. There are 2 races in the Dallas runoff election. In Place 3, Mrs. Adeline Harrison faces Jerry Bardis. In Place 8, Mrs. Lucy Patterson is challenged by Clay Smothers. Both women won by comfortable margins 2 weeks ago. Each has the backing of the Citizens Charter Association, while their male opponents stress their independence from any political establishment. The polls will close at 7 o'clock, a little less than an hour from now, and Channel 8 News will carry election returns throughout the evening. Jack Hill, Channel 8 News on the Move.
How many is there?